Jerusalem, which was the center of the Jewish praise and the Jewish nation as a religious community, as well as an independent, not independent, but a dependent people. Jerusalem was ruled by the Romans, and so it was a city in captivity. And people came to Jerusalem to worship God for the Passover and to remember the great deeds that God had done. But there was this undercurrent of discontent and revolution, and people were angry at the Roman rule, and they were waiting. And the word had gone out that this Jesus had come, and he was the Messiah. People said he was the Messiah, and the Jews had for centuries longed for this Messiah that would set them free from Roman captivity. And so they thought that this was the time. And Jesus coming into the city on the back, riding on a donkey, as it was foretold in the scriptures, and that made them even more sure that now was the time it was coming. And so they waved their palm branches and they sang and they said Hosanna, which means hooray, right, to our King. And they were excited. And the government, the Roman government, was uneasy because if you are a captive people and you are the governing force of that captive people, you're always ready to squash any form of rebellion. Not only were the Roman authorities mad, or not mad, but concerned, but the Jewish authorities were also concerned because this Jesus, he wasn't behaving in the way they thought he should. He didn't come and ask permission from the elders in the temple to do what he'd done. He didn't get their blessing. And then he did things like perform miracles and cure the sick on the Sabbath. And they knew that no good Jew would do that because any good Jew would follow the law. And the law said that you weren't supposed to work on the Sabbath. And so they had concerns. And then Jesus had come to the temple and he saw all of the people in the temple that were selling. They were selling pigeons and doves and goats and lambs for people to offer in the temple. And they were changing the money, the Roman money, out for temple coins. There was all of this business going on and these people making money, and you could see all this greed, and Jesus was so offended that he turned over the tables of the money changers in the temple and got really mad and got a whip and was whipping them out and just made a huge commotion in the temple. And the religious leaders didn't like that either. And so the religious leaders saw a way to rid themselves of this dangerous influence that was Jesus. And so they went to the Roman authorities and they said, he's a troublemaker and he's going to start a revolution. And the Roman authorities, with the Jewish leaders, they arrested him. And so the people went very quickly from rejoicing at the deliverance to the Roman oppressors coming on, and the Jewish leaders saying, no, this isn't right. And so very quickly, in the same period that we go from the joy to the crucifixion, how do we go so fast? It is traditional on Palm Sunday to read an account of the crucifixion, and so of the passion of Jesus Christ. And so in your bulletin is an insert, and it's an interactive reading, so there's a part for you as well as we go through this recounting of the passion of Jesus Christ. And so Matthew says to us that Jesus stood before the governor, and the governor asked him, this is Pontius Pilate, the Roman governor of Jerusalem, "Are you the king of the Jews?" Jesus said, "You say so." But when he was accused by the chief priests and elders, he did not answer. Then Pilate said to him, "Do you not hear how many accusations they make against you?" But he gave them no answer, not even to a single charge, so that the governor was greatly amazed. Now at the festival, the governor was accustomed to release a prisoner for the crowd, anyone whom they wanted. At that time, they had a notorious prisoner called Jesus Barabbas. So after they had gathered, Pilate said to them, "Whom do you want me to release for you, Jesus Barabbas, or Jesus, who is called the Messiah?" For he realized that it was out of jealousy that they had handed him over. While he was sitting on the judgment seat, his wife sent word to him, "Have nothing to do with that innocent man, for today I have suffered a great deal because of a dream about him." Now the chief priests and the elders persuaded the crowds to ask for Barabbas and to have Jesus killed. The governor again said to them, which of the two do you want me to release for you? And they said,
Barabbas.
Pilate said to them, then what should I do with Jesus, who is called the Messiah? And all of them said,
Let him be crucified.
Then he said, why? What evil has he done? But they shouted all the more,
Let him be crucified.
So when Pilate saw he could do nothing, but rather that a riot was beginning, he took some water and washed his hands before the crowd, saying, I am innocent of this man's blood. See to it yourselves. Then the people as a whole answered,
His blood be on us and on our children.
So he released Barabbas for them, and after flogging Jesus, he handed him over to be crucified. Then the soldiers of the governor took Jesus into the governor's headquarters, and they gathered the whole cohort around him. They stripped him and put a scarlet robe on him, and after twisting some thorns into a crown, they put it on his head. They put a reed in his right hand and knelt before him and mocked him, saying,
Hail, King of the Jews.
They spat on him and took the reed and struck him on the head. After mocking him, they stripped him of the robe and put his own clothes on him. Then they led him away to crucify him. As they went out, they came upon a man from Cyrene called Simon. They compelled this man to carry his cross. And when they came to a place called Golgotha, which means place of a skull, they offered him wine to drink, mixed with gall. But when he tasted it, he would not drink. He would not drink it. And when they had crucified him, they divided his clothes among themselves by casting lots. Then they sat down there and kept watch over him. Over his head they put the charge against him, which read, This is Jesus, King of the Jews. Then the two bandits were crucified with him, one on his right and one on his left. Those who passed by derided him, shaking their heads and saying,
You who restored the temple and built it in 3 days, save yourself. You are the Son of God. Come down from the cross.
In the same way the chief priests also, along with the scribes and elders, were mocking him, saying,
He saved others, he cannot save himself. He is the King of Israel. Let him come down from the cross now, and we will believe in him. He trusts in God. Let God deliver him now, if he wants to. For he said, I am God's son.
The bandits who were crucified with him also taunted him in the same way. From noon on, darkness came over the whole land, until 3 in the afternoon. And about 3 o'clock, Jesus cried out with a loud voice, Eli, Eli, lema sabachthani. That is, my God, why have you forsaken me? When some of the bystanders heard it, they said, This man is calling for Elijah. At once, one of them ran and got a sponge and filled it with sour wine, and put it on a stick, and gave it to him to drink. But the others said, Wait, let us see whether Elijah will come to save him. Then Jesus cried again with a loud voice and breathed his last. At that moment, the curtain of the temple was torn in two from top to bottom. The earth shook, and the rocks were split. The tombs also were opened, and many bodies of the saints who had fallen asleep were raised. After his resurrection, they came out of the tombs and entered the holy city and appeared to many. Now when the centurion and those with him were keeping watch over Jesus, saw the earthquake and what took place, they were terrified and said,
Truly this man was God's son.
And this is the word of God, and it is for us, the people of God. Now, it's kind of incongruous for me to give any kind of a message, because the message of the crucifixion kind of stands on its own. It doesn't really need a lot. But if you think about, when I was reading this again, I thought about, what if we were there? If we were there, which person would we have been? There are lots of different kinds of things that are represented in this story. There are the people that kind of predate the story, the same people that were waving the palm branches and were shouting, Hooray, Jesus is here, were the same people that were yelling out, Crucify him. Are we people who just go along with whatever the mood is at the minute? Are we fair with the fans? Are we the people who, yeah, we're all religious on Christmas and Easter, because it's cool to be religious then, but the rest of the year not. Well, not any of us, because we're all here every week. All of us are regular attenders of church, and so we're not the fair weather fans. And so maybe we're the people who maybe we know people, or maybe we're people who represent the establishment. Maybe we follow the rules, and we are the chief priests and the elders who, we do bad things sometimes. We do them for good reasons because we're good law-abiding citizens. And so we do what the law requires. And so we turn Jesus over because that's what the law says. Or maybe we're the soldiers who don't know who this is and don't believe anyway, but we're looking for a good time, right? And so there are people that they don't believe in anything, but they're ready to make fun of it at any opportunity. They're ready to make fun of Jesus. They dress him up like a king, right, with a crown of thorns and a purple robe and a scepter made out of a piece of a stick. And they mock him and they spit on him because we make fun of those things which we don't take seriously and we don't believe in anyway. Or maybe we're the people who gather around to see what's going on. There was a crowd that gathered there at the foot of the cross, and they were gathering there to watch. Let's see what happens. He said he could rebuild the temple in 3 days. Well, then come on down. Show us. Maybe we're the people that want to believe it if we can see it. Prove that you're God. Do what it is that I want you to do for me in my life. Prove that you're God, and then I'll believe in you. And we'll stand around and watch to see. Maybe we're those kind of people. Maybe we're looking for some excitement, and we think that if we can see God work in our lives, then we'll believe it. Maybe we're dissatisfied. Maybe we don't believe anymore. Maybe we used to believe, but we don't anymore. And we say, well, he said he could save other people. He did all those miracles. If he was really God, he'd save himself. And so clearly, this is evidence that none of that was true, that it was all a lie. Maybe we're the scared little person who, at the last minute, when it's really too late, tries to help. And they put the sponge on the reed and they give Jesus something to drink. He's dying on the cross and in front of a crowd after he's been whipped and beaten and mocked. And everybody's disbelieved him, but maybe they'll help now a little bit, so when nobody's looking. You kind of can visualize somebody kind of stirring up and helping him at the last minute. Maybe we're the people that after we see God's work in our lives, then we say what the people did at the end, truly this man was God's son. That really, it is true, and we believe it, but not until it was proved to us in some way. Maybe we're the apostles who believed, but were scared. This story doesn't include it, but most of us are familiar with the story of Peter. When Jesus was being tried, he denied that he knew Jesus because if he admitted that he was with them, maybe he would be next. And so Peter was a faithful follower of Jesus. He followed him all around the countryside for 3 years. But when his own life was in danger, he said, I don't know who that guy is. I've never seen him. I'm just hanging around. Do we, when it really matters, do we deny our belief? Those are really hard questions, and I don't want to think about that too hard because I'm afraid maybe I won't come out in the right place. I would like to believe that I was one of the faithful women that followed along and that stood there and that came back then to anoint the body of Jesus the next day, that I wasn't afraid. I would like to think that. But I don't know. I mean, do any of us know? And in our own lives, how do we express our belief in Jesus Christ? We don't have Romans after us. We're not going to go to jail. Nobody's persecuting Christians. There are people in the media that like to say Christians are being persecuted, but sometimes those are the ones that are doing some of the persecuting. Are we those Christians that are persecuting others? Are we the Christians that come to church on Sunday, but that's where it ends? Are we the Christians that as soon as God doesn't do what we want, we fall away? Are we come, but we don't really believe it anymore? Are we the kind of Christians that really do what it is that Jesus had been saying all those 3 years when he was teaching and preaching, and all of the things that we hear in the gospel week after week and year after year? Are we doing those things? Are we really being the disciples of Jesus Christ? Are we treating other people the way Jesus wants us to treat them? Are we living out the Gospels? Some days I don't want to ask myself that question too hard because the answer isn't always the answer I would like it to be. And so as we go through this Holy Week and we think about the last days of Jesus Christ and we celebrate with great joy the resurrection, which makes all the rest of it not important. What's important is not the crucifixion. What's important is the resurrection. And the fact that Jesus rose and gives us that hope that we too will rise, that we are indeed God's chosen people, that we are a resurrection people that believe in Jesus Christ and all the things that he taught, and believe that we can have a relationship with God, and that we have then a responsibility to treat other people the way Jesus treated them. That's what we should be. We should be a resurrection people that treats everybody that way. That looks at mission projects that help other people as not a duty or not just one more thing to do, but as a joy. That we are people whose hearts are like Jesus. They are broken for those who don't have what we have. That we can go out and make the world a better place. Because that's what Jesus called us to do. As we go through this Holy Week and we prepare for Easter and we celebrate Easter next week, let it not just be a waving of the palms and a celebration of the good, but a genuine change in our hearts that makes us the people that God really created us to be, and who Jesus showed us how to be in spite of the pain and the suffering and the rejection, that we, like Jesus Christ, can rise and be in real relationship with God, because that's what he came to show us, and that's what he came to be. Amen. Let's respond to that with number 382. Have thine